Pod. This is going to be so fun for me.
Hi, I'm Amy Porter, and this is my podcast. My mission is to show people how to empower themselves through music, business, and media. I try to see as clearly as possible how I can help. I showcase the music that I've played and the people I've met along the way. I'm a wife and a stepmom. You might know me as a professor, a performer, a producer, a publisher, a recording artist. I'm the founder of a couple of nonprofits. Welcome in to my Porter Flute Pod.
Welcome to Porter Flute Pod. I'm so happy you're here.
Welcome to Porter Flute Pod. It's Season 7, Episode 8, and we're in Ask Amy. It's questions and answers from Instagram and Facebook that I've asked from you over the past few weeks about peak performance possibilities, what you need to know about the methods I might use to perform at my best. Much of it can be found at aos-wellness.com, and it's just a great resource for everything I'm about to tell you. So here's our first question. How do you deal with adrenaline during performance? Well, it's natural to hear the rush of your heartbeat while you perform and your temperature rise. So during that performance or passage, we want to feel our core engaged without using our shoulders. So you're in the heat of the moment, give up your elbows. We don't want to hold the flute, right? We don't want to grab the flute. We can hold the flute easily if we take the stress out of the arms. I like to think that I'm a tree and the flute is a branch that doesn't weigh me down. I can stand tall or sit tall in confidence and breathe in the heat of the moment. Frederick Alexander of the Alexander Technique advised people to lay on the floor with a small stack of books under the head for 10 minutes prior to a performance. He was really onto something there. With controlled breathing, we can soothe something called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is a bundle of nerves that descends from the brain through the cervical spine and then into the entire nervous system. Breathing in a controlled ratio, with the exhalation being twice as long as the inhalation, we can lower the heart rate and soothe the entire nervous system. Over time, an overactive fight or flight response can be transformed. Backstage, I like to say the syllables F or SH to get my heart rate down. It creates a barrier for your airstream and it slows down the beats per minute. Over the years, the stress of constant performing can cause a normal system of flight or fight to overreact. And the psoas and the diaphragm are an important part of this flight system. If we begin our breathing session by stretching our psoas, we can be ready to play our best in about 10 minutes. So stretching and breathing. What you do is you set a timer for 10 minutes and you begin with some psoas stretches, and then you sit on a chair, and the time that's left before the timer goes off, you do what works for you, whether it's diaphragmatic breathing or meditation. Picture doing this in your dressing room. It'll work for you if you allow time in your schedule to do this. And again, visit AOS-Wellness for more information on the psoas and advice from my partner, Laura Dwyer. Now, as far as beta blockers, I've not recommended them except in very extreme circumstances. I'm more inclined to recommend this exercise. And I'm happy to say, one time I was able to get a student down from 4 Enderall tablets to 1/2. So I'm just into what works for the person to guarantee success. And not numb yourself in the process. Here's our next question. Do you get sweaty hands while performing? Well, yes. And I sweat everywhere because right now it's July in North Carolina in a rainforest. So I'm at Brevard Music Center making this podcast, and I would say that the best thing you can do is prevention. So grab a towel, throw it in your bag if you play in an orchestra, and just reach down and make sure that you're constantly just drying your hands. The other suggestion is to have pockets in your dress. If you're wearing a gown, make sure that you can have a rag in there and just put your hand in your pocket and dry your hand. Another question is about excessive spit during performances and maybe some remedies. Well, when I was young, I put a piece of masking tape on the lip plate of the chin plate right there on my flute to absorb excess spit. And it was a kind of a phase I went through. I can only suggest performing more in public and then writing in your music where to swallow. Yes, we write in our music where to breathe, but I have also written swallow in my part. And here are some remedies for excessive saliva when you're nervous, also known as hypersalivation. Again, swallow more, swallow before speaking, take frequent sips of fluids, and chew gum to stimulate swallowing. And distract yourself with musical thoughts, maybe. Keep your mouth closed when you're not playing. When you're reading or listening or watching television, try to keep your mouth closed. Try other remedies like suck on dried ginger, eat pineapple, or drink ginger tea or dark grape juice before you play. Also, literally chewing while you're trying to articulate is a factor. Jaw movement stimulates saliva production, right? Your body thinks you're eating. So if you're chewing, if you move the tongue and the jaw at the same time in order to articulate, you're going to have a bad time of it. Also, if the jaw is moving around all the time, it's searching and unstable, and we can never be assured of a beautiful tone on an articulated note. So keeping the jaw stable keeps the variables low. For instance, cracking the note, an issue that becomes an obsession with some students. Cracking will become more rare with less jaw motion, and it really should be where it is when you speak. So put the jaw where it is when you speak and then play, and don't move it around a lot. Also, women with TMJ who have limited jaw movement may have a lower saliva flow. Other conditions can affect saliva production, including salivary gland problems, which can cause dry mouth. And that's my issue right now as I age in my performance life. The tongue can feel like it's a loofah sponge in my mouth. And now I'm just trying to do everything in my power to increase saliva production after a phrase of double tonguing or flutter tonguing. It's brought on by Sjogren's syndrome, which is an autoimmune disorder that I simply cannot get rid of, but I can alleviate the symptoms. See, things just appear as we age. Okay, on to the next question. Do you have any performance rituals? The preparation I do beforehand shapes my performance. Extensive research has been conducted to examine the extra musical elements that musicians can incorporate into their pre-performance routines. So sleep is the very first aspect. I always take a nap the day of the concert. See, sleep occupies a significant portion of our lives, and it really plays a crucial role in our consistency, in our endurance, our concentration, our breath, our energy. And scientific studies have shown that prolonged practice of the flute and the forearm muscle fatigue can negatively affect your musical performance. So you need to rest. So adequate sleep is vital for us to relax and to recover and to repair. Research shows that sleep helps memory. And while we sleep, our brains are, continuing to function and processing all the information we learned throughout the day. So sleep not only refreshes our mind, but improves our concentration and enhances our performance. And sleep has been found to enhance the speed of your execution, complex motor skills to a certain extent. Okay, sleep, right? Number 2, build a positive mindset and attitude. More musicians experience anxiety and pressure and stress before performances than ever before. There's so much comparison, and it paralyzes people at times. So I can appreciate the pressure and the apprehension. It's totally normal. And negative thoughts are going to emerge with the pressure of presenting something that you want to be successful in the public. So make sure that you build your positive attitude. And the third thing, engage in physical activity. It triggers the release of endorphins, and those are natural mood enhancers. Talk to friends, talk to family, seek a therapist. Just get something where you can offer your thoughts and you can get back some empathy and understanding. So exercise and writing down your thoughts. It's kind of the zone 1 of the day, if you've heard my other podcasts about what to do in the beginning of your day. So if you cultivate physical activities and trusted friends that you could talk to and journaling about your performances, I think that's going to help organize your mind and create a sense of structure. Now, here's my fourth piece of advice in this realm about pre-performance routines: dress rehearsals. They're not typically open to the public, but if you have someone to go with you, then they can record you. They can offer up some suggestions on balance. And so here's what I consider important for the dress rehearsal. I wear the performance shoes. Yes, my shoes that I'm going to play in, that I intend to wear. This allows me to become accustomed to the feel of playing in these shoes, as well as the experience of walking on stage. The acoustics, I familiarize myself with the acoustics of this venue, and I adjust my playing technique and dynamics accordingly. I like to observe potential distractions. Like, I like to know if the HVAC noises are going to go away. If I'm going to have someone opening and closing the door, stage management. So noises and distractions, just try and be defensive and get those things taken care of. I try to maintain a quiet backstage area. I maintain mental focus. I do not have conversations with people. I do visualization and mindfulness, and I absolutely don't speak to anyone before I play so that I don't lose focus. Lighting and stage elements are important. Pay attention to the lighting on stage, as well as your stand height. Work to ensure proper visibility of everything you need to see, and consider your desired stage effect. And number 5, get the intonation of the piano before you play your concert. I never want the A to be the very first thing that people hear. Okay, our next question. How should I warm up before a performance? Flute warmups? Mind and body warmups? I believe that performers can work and play at our best when we are empowered, not when we're weak. So through this power, we find awareness of enjoyment. So we want to celebrate the moment of the performance, right? And if you're employing even a few techniques out there that I've been giving you, you'll move into a state of enjoying yourself as you perform. So you've analyzed everything. What do you need to warm up on? What do you need to get going in your mind? So the day of the performance, nuts and bolts, I'll get my flute out and I'll do Trudy Kane's vibrato exercise. So do what vibrato exercise you do, but I do slow practice, and I even conduct and solfege. Like here at Brevard, I will get out the piece of music and just sit at the table with my pencil and make sure that I know everything that I'm playing. And I won't tire out my lips. So you can write down all the notes and exercises about mind and body later in this podcast, because I have some more information about how to get into that zone before you play. So you can always find out more at AOS-Wellness. Here's another question. How do I stop overthinking or hyper-fixating on perfection? Great question. Strive for progress, not perfection. And when you stop focusing on the perfection, you get more work done in progressing to your next level. So when I was 5, I had no problem singing at the top of my lungs in front of a willing audience. But then 10 years later, and when I was 15, and 10 years after that, it was a different experience. Very hard. Really tough to play in public, and I couldn't see past the mistakes. All my faculties were there, but I was hit or miss in performance. So I realized my ego was in its infancy and it needed to be shaped. And I needed to listen to my teachers and not rely on my talent alone. So I pose the following questions to you. Why do we feel the need to get up in public? Why do we want to play an instrument or play in an ensemble or act in a play? What is it about our personalities that gives us the confidence, yet the humility to perform in a social environment? So I found the dictionary to be a very compelling place to start. I think the best way to stop overthinking is to learn some definitions of practical terms that best define our mission in performance. So for our benefit, I'd like to define the words that I love to define: perform, confidence, and ego. In my teaching, I realize we all need reminding of these terms in order to move forward in our artistry. First, let's get the dictionary's definition of the terms I'm using. It's an interesting perspective to like a basic source like the dictionary. So then you can look at it from the perspective of an artist. So artists do all the points in these definitions. For instance, perform, it's a verb. To carry out or perform an action. Execute, perform a function. Who will perform the wedding? You can give a performance in Carnegie Hall. Horowitz is performing at Carnegie Hall. And then perform, I did my job. We do all of those. Confidence, noun. Confidence, free from doubt. Belief in yourself and your abilities. It's a feeling of trust in something or someone. I have confidence in my team. And then confidence is also a state of confident hopefulness that events will be favorable. Public confidence in the economy, or confidence I will give a good performance. Then there's ego, an inflated feeling of pride in your superiority to others. Egotism, self-importance. Ego is also your consciousness of your identity. So self-consciousness, an alert cognitive state in which you are aware of yourself and your situation, like he lost consciousness. And then ego in psychoanalysis is the conscious mind. And that's where we are going here. So here's some advice from my partner, Laura Dwyer at Anatomy of Sound. She says, learn to know the difference between the ego and the self. Really cultivate the ability to tell the difference between the ego, or the one that's passing judgment, and the self, or the one who's listening. Softening the outer layer of the body frees the creative heart and soothes the often defensive ego. This is another way that yoga is so beneficial. In yoga, we learn what it feels like to soften the body and to keep it soft as we move into vulnerability. To stay soft and not create tension in the body is to brace ourselves against our perceived danger, and it's difficult, and it must be practiced. To be a performer, one must have the inner strength to walk out on stage and stay vulnerable and soft. Laura has been calling this ability a kind of strange bravery ever since she found it in her own performing. On to the next question. How do you keep up momentum when you're close to a performance, but you're exhausted? Well, I say no to other things around performances, so I make that performance the priority. And in our exhaustion, we hear our analytical mind, we feel our stressed out and tight bodies, And we're trying to access the soul that we know is there, that we need in that performance. So it's difficult to bring all those energies together and harness them so they won't overwhelm us. Many of us feel locked up when we think of performing, and we've got all these other things. So just remember that through the breath, through breathing, we're communicating music to the rest of the world. So we're blowing into this instrument and we're singing with a purpose. And this purpose has an individual meaning for us all, and we must consciously seek out the music and bring its best purpose to life as we see fit. So every week you might have a different recital, you might have a different concert, and there might be family, administration, illness, everything is in the way of the one thing that you want to do, and you're exhausted. So put that one thing you want to do first. Make that a priority. And then everything else will fall into place after that. If you try to juggle too many balls, some are going to fall on the ground and you won't be able to pick them up. What do you think we need to give a significant experience to the public through our performance? Well, program notes are a great way to reach an audience if you don't like speaking. And speaking is the number one way to reach your audience. I do plays and musicals as a recital. I've done that 4 times now, and I absolutely love it. You can see those also at YouTube, Anatomy of Sound. Context is everything. So put your performance into context for your listener. And if they embrace it, it's a plus. Not everyone will like what you do, but you're the one person who can convince them. Here's our next question. Does positive self-talk really work, and when should we use it? Great question. So positive self-talk really proves to be beneficial. If you keep repeating, I can do this, or I say yes right before I want to play something well, you can say, I trust myself, anything. Just contribute to a very positive mindset before you play. Regardless of what happens on stage, self-affirmation is crucial. Self-love, right? Preparing for the worst, like my mom always would, and then giving your best effort, it can be really helpful. I always say, put on boxing gloves, be defensive. So Laura Dwyer says, we often think that we must constantly give ourselves verbal guidance as we practice or perform because that's what often happens in rehearsals and lessons. However, it's really trying to hear 2 different languages at once. Have you ever been on the phone and someone else walks in the room and begins talking to you? And most of us have been through that. And we end up not being able to hear either person, the one on the phone or the one in the room. So that happens to us on stage. We can't even hear ourselves play music, and we can't hear what we're saying to ourselves. So we have to cultivate a quiet mind. We have to really be in the moment of each note of a performance. We can cultivate that ability in meditation and by spending time in our practice sessions trying to play for extended periods without verbal direction. Learn to notice when you're thinking words and then try not to interact with them. Thoughts can be seen as clouds passing through the sky. Don't engage with them. Teach yourself to be only the music when you're performing. In what ways can you practice to feel prepared enough, and enough is in quotations, for performances? So my first question is, what's enough? Is playing the correct notes in the right places and the right pitches enough? So number 1, slow practice. We really don't do it, but we should. So painfully slow practice. Teach your ear, this one, and your fingers. Here's another suggestion to feel prepared enough. Use creative visualization. We all look in the mirror. We artists see ourselves, and we're talented, but we're flawed. And as we begin to love what we do, we want our voice to be beautiful. So everyone who's played an instrument at some point in their life feels the need to find their true voice in music. You produce the tone, and working in a mirror with your beautiful sound will guide you. You'll watch your instrument, you'll watch your body, and you'll help cultivate that voice that you seek. It will open up to your ultimate beauty as a performer. So see yourself in the moment of the solo or the concerto and run it on replay. Go ahead and use my 4-hour practice routine. If you find that you need structure in your practice, it will make sure you feel prepared enough because you've prepared everything in little bits of time. You haven't spent too long on one piece and overlooked the rest. So you will be prepared. I appreciate all the questions that I've received over the past few weeks getting ready for this episode. I think we touched on several factors that can help keep you at your peak performance level. Every performance will be different. And that right there should keep you on your toes. You can find out more at aos-wellness.com. I'll see you all there. Thank you for being in Porter Flute Pod, and thank you, Izzy and Ella, for helping me produce Season 7. If you enjoy our show and you want to review us and rate us, go to Apple Podcasts. You can find our show at porterflute.com, and you can find me at amyporter.com and on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube. I'm Porter Flute. Thanks for being in Porter Flute Pod. I'm so grateful for you.